And then I moved to actually being a fashion designer, the regular way, traditional fashion design. And then I always continue with the 3D as a personal project hobby of mine. And then when COVID came, I saw the opportunity of digging in more into 3D. So 3D opened the door for that, to be more remote and continue working in the industry without having to be presently there or physically sample the specific style. Because when we are talking about the process of designing with 3D, there are a lot of aspects that need to take into consideration, like the fabric, the material. This is like the most essential in the development of a style, of any style, because this is where you will assess whether you can guarantee that what you're looking at is realistic to real life. What we're trying to match is always the Pantone color, because that's the only one that you cannot go wrong. It's a certain, it's a very specific, right? Still, the problem is there that then if you go to a screen that is not calibrated, it will look completely different. But if you open the Pantone color in that screen, it will match. So trying to rely on the only thing that we can agree on, that it is the correct color. AI is going to be a game changer. It is a game changer already in 3D. Uh, in the building these libraries, it is already how you can get easily these assets out, how people can work with the 3D in their day to day without having to have all of this specific knowledge and very specialized knowledge. So that is definitely changing the game. And when we're talking about fashion, it depends, of course, again, what type of company you have. But for instance, if you are a B2B based company, or that is your main road of operations, then if your sales team is not with you, then you are being delayed, because they are the ones that at the end, even though internally everyone is motivated about it, then you still care about, at the end of the day, how much sales are you making, what is your turnover. So if this is not supported from that side, then it's going to delay the rest. When we're talking digital and physical, it's not about replacing one or another, it's about using the strength of each. So that is the goal. It's not that suddenly physical won't exist, that will never happen, but it's about having the strength of both into one.
Hello, Claudia.
Hello.
How you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm good as well. I'm good. Not too much, nothing to complain about.
Good, glad to
Um,
hear.
yes, I'm very much looking forward to this session.
Same.
Welcome to Behind the Scenes.
Thank you very much. Such a pleasure to be here.
It's all my pleasure. Cool. So, getting used to the new heat and the weather
Yeah,
in
very
Denmark.
much
Yeah.
so. It's so good, but also today in the office, because half of it is in glass. All of the meeting rooms are extremely warm, and we have a construction right outside, so we can also not open the windows because it's extremely noisy. But if it
Oh,
is for this good weather, we will have it.
yeah, exactly. I hope the air conditioning is working good enough. So,
Nah,
so.
so so. So I might get a little bit red as we speak.
All right. No, that's just fine. I'll try to not ask the hardest questions,
No,
but I'm
that's
sure
okay.
we'll. All right. Cool. So, Claudia, we've been in meetings before, but
Yeah.
I've never got the opportunity to really get to know you and what you work with. But you were very kind to share some pointers in terms of how to deal with 3D files, GLB files, and so on from a technical point of view. But then I understand you actually seem to be um, having much more depth and experience into the realm of 3D, which we will talk about a lot today. But as far as my research goes, I understand you were a fashion designer, a more traditional way from start. So it would be very interesting to just hear how come you ended up as the 3D manager at
Mm.
Vila, and yeah, maybe just tell us your story briefly.
Yeah, of course. So actually, when I went to university, I decided to go for fashion design because that is has always been my passion. And actually, when I was finishing my career, my university degree, then I started to look into 3D, and I
Hmm.
found it so interesting. So actually, for my last year, like a bachelor's project, I did it with 3D at the time using a Marvelous Designer. So I made some of the styles that I had in my collection in 3D. I made kind of an AR app
Hmm.
together with a developer of Unity. And from there, I thought, okay, this is where I want to continue with. But I got, in my first job, I actually got hired as a pattern designer.
Okay.
So not even this fashion design nor 3D, but it was because of my 3D knowledge and what it could mean in the pattern design environment. And then I moved to actually being a fashion designer, the regular way, traditional fashion design. And then I always continued with the 3D as a personal project hobby of mine. And then when COVID came, I saw the opportunity of digging in more into 3D. And then I started to work as a freelancer for 3D, mainly with suppliers in Portugal. So I was making the 3D samples for their customers because they couldn't send them as often. People weren't in the office to assess the
Hmm.
fitting and the styles. So 3D opened the door for that to be more remote and continue working in the industry without having to be presently there or physically sample the specific style. And from there, I got a bit tired of working just purely technically building styles that I had nothing to do with them, and it was just a
Yeah. So you
very
were getting a specification about
yeah,
a style someone imagined, and it was your job to convert it to 3D.
yeah. And I even
Okay.
got the 2D patterns and everything, so I just had to basically stitch it in 3D
Yeah.
and then render some images and send it back all
Hmm.
together. So then I was looking for new opportunities. Also, freelancing is not an easy job. And then I was living in Portugal at the time, and I found this position in Denmark for Villa as a 3D fashion designer. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to go for it. And luckily, I got it.
Yeah, that's
and
nice.
I moved here to Villa to work as a 3D fashion designer, and 3 years ago. And since then, I think every year I have grown more and more within the teams, and now ended up as a 3D manager here in Villa. Yeah.
That's really nice. So, as when you say that you're a 3D fashion designer, does that nowadays mean that you're part of designing styles in the collection? I mean, are you the fashion designer, or are you still helping out 3D visualizing the styles? What
Yeah.
does it actually entail?
Well, I think depending on where you work and the team, it will mean different things.
Okay.
In my experience, when I started here, it was more also to create what is the base for 3D. How can we work with it with already all of the work that the team here had started
Hmm.
up with the suppliers, and to build libraries and really with a focus on how can we make design processes faster.
Hmm.
But we are in Villa, we work a lot with our suppliers. So even though there is a lot of design and trend research and analysis and development of very nice collections, when it came to all of the technical part, that was done by the suppliers.
Hmm.
So in that sense, I couldn't design that much with the 3D program. It was
Hmm.
more about adding things here and there and trying to build libraries. Nowadays, I don't work as a designer anymore, but I do have someone in my team that does. And what she is doing, working together with design, it is building all of these libraries for easy design development, based also on 2D patterns that are made by our pattern specialists here. So it's a combination of both worlds and really trying to see how 3D can impact on the design processes on the shaping and drawing part, but also with prints, colors, all of that game of the visualization, it really brings a lot of benefit into the design teams.
Yeah, because that's actually something it's hard for me to visualize how the fashion designers, the traditional fashion designers, uh, how they actually work. I mean, I envision that they sit in front of a desk with some paper and pen and do some nice drawings, very sketchy, sketch-like drawings, and somehow that turns into a sample. But the journey in between, I mean, maybe you can shed some insights and lights into how that goes and how that is now different if they use 3D to the fullest extent.
Yeah. So a traditional fashion designer nowadays is not that they're drawing on paper, they're drawing with Illustrator or similar CAD systems to draw in tech flat sketches per se. But beginning, the first part of it is that you have a lot of trend analysis, research, also color mapping, what is going to work in the next collection, what is being wanted out there, what is the forecast that they are analyzing. Then
Mhm.
they make decisions. They have different options, both of design made on the CAD system, but also of styles offers that the supplier can share and send, like, I have these styles, maybe they fit into this
Mhm.
inspiration. And then within the team of design and buyers, they select what the collection is going to look like. Once
Mhm.
that is done, then the whole process of development begins. So the designer will create a style card, and this is where designers put the CAD sketch with the changes that have been required or decided in that selection meeting, and
Mhm.
then also the colors that it should come in, any prints, any trims, the specifications, etc. Then this is sent to the supplier along with a
And
measurement.
a lot of
Sorry.
this, just so that I follow along. So most of this work that you just said is happening in a CAD type of software.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Illustrated in the beginning, and then it's translated into more technical
Yeah.
drawings in some kind of CAD software, and
Yeah,
then and
it
so
is.
on.
I'm meaning a CAD software as Illustrator. So you're just a
Illustrated,
vector
okay,
software. Yeah,
vectorized.
yeah,
Okay, got it.
yeah. And then you put it like in a PDF or an Excel. You create a
Hmm.
document that is what where you put all of the information of that style.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
And with that, then the supplier develops the first samples along with the specific measurements that is given.
What's a supplier in this context? Is it the
Yes.
factory? I mean, who are they?
Manufacturing factory. So yeah,
Okay.
the seamstress, 2D pattern cutters, two designers as well is the whole, yeah, sourcing factory. So
Okay.
not in the case that in 3D you will have a vendor
Yeah.
as a supplier. This is
All right.
purely for manufacturing. Yeah.
Got it. I mean, usually like suppliers that would be in China,
Yeah.
Turkey, and so on.
Mm.
All right, ready to produce the samples somehow.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Exactly. Yeah, so that is basically the most traditional way of developing a style, and
Hmm.
then you rely on the samples that this supplier sent for you to check on the fitting, on the colors. They
Hmm.
also create strike offs when you're working with print, so they are doing like a digital print, uh, any other type of technique that is needed. Then the designers check the colors: are they matching with the Pantone reference or
Hmm.
the color specification that they have given? So this is the current, like the traditional way of doing it.
Hmm.
Now, when we
Just
are talking, yeah,
Claudia, questions pop up in my mind,
yes,
but just to take a tangent here, you
Mhm.
said you would look at trends and try to figure out early on what the new collection should be about. I've actually
Mhm.
always wondered, how do you know the trends 6 to 9 months ahead? You don't have to go too deep into it, but just
Yeah.
some.
Well, there are different platforms, or how you can call it, forex analysts in the industry. Like you have WGSN, for instance, is one of the biggest trend research platforms. So you will
Mhm.
go there, and then they analyze all of the catwalks and what is happening in the industry, what is the tendencies regarding art, not only fashion. When you're looking for trends, you're not purely looking into fashion companies, but also what is the new art movement, what is influencing what is
Yes.
coming next. And then also there is at least in the fast fashion industry, let's say like that, high street,
Hmm.
so not luxury, that I don't know. In the high street you also rely a lot on what you see in other companies, so in other fashion labels. So you investigate a little bit more. Okay, they are selling a lot of this type of a skirt, so maybe we need to cover that need as well. So you do a lot of analysis back and forth on how is the market behaving and how is the overall trend set by this big yeah analysts,
Got it.
researchers. And but of course nowadays more things will come with the AI, and also weather
Mm.
weather trends which are
Yeah.
changing have also very big influence. Yeah,
Climate change also impacts designers. Interesting.
very much so.
But I mean, to what extent does the designer have their own a subjective, input to the process now that they can have all of this input?
Yeah, well, they still do, right? They're the one making the choices of whether to add that into the trend or not, and
Yeah,
then creating your own version of it,
yeah,
your own view of what you think is gonna work best. Yeah.
got it. So your own flair a little bit. All right,
Yeah.
let's get back to now that we have the 3D possibilities. How does the how is it different from the
Yeah.
traditional way of working?
So, first of all, on the whole, starting up of the collection. So, when you are receiving offer samples from the suppliers that you have shared your trend research, then they can send it in 3D. So, therefore, it is easier to
Hmm.
make several choices because they can offer more options faster. You don't have to wait for the samples to arrive. Then you can also make changes already there if you're not 100% sure, and see them in a earlier in the process before you decide if you want to proceed with the style or not. Then when it comes to the whole color scheming, color trying, what could work well with prints as well. You can play with prints in 3D, scaling them up and down, seeing what is functioning. It doesn't need to be smaller, doesn't need to be bigger. How does it look better in different kind of shapes? And
Hmm.
lastly, as well as it is right now, the potential is much bigger, but as it is right now, also when you are communicating or designing the sketches, that then you can do it faster with a more accurate sketch of it. So if you have a library base, then you just have to do a few clicks and then you have actually a 3D style instead
Yeah.
of a flat sketch. And therefore, you have a lot of more details into it and you appreciate the volumes much
Hmm.
better of a style. And that also serves as a base to the supplier to start manufacturing and using it for fitting development because
Hmm.
you will give them the 2D
Yeah.
part of it. Yeah.
That's interesting. So if I understand you correctly, it's almost once the trend analysis has been done, you provided that to the supplier. You said the supplier provides the 3D
Yeah.
file back. So it's not even the brands that necessarily drive that
No,
initial change; it's the suppliers.
it depends on the type of. I've been in other companies that they don't work that much with offer samples. It really depends. Like actually, there is a big difference between the north of Europe and the south.
Hmm. In
How
what sense?
because here for me it was a shock as a previous pattern designer. When I worked in Spain as a pattern designer, it was in a brand, and we mainly did all of the 2D cats and everything, the 2D patterns in house, and then we
Mm.
just send that to the suppliers, and then they will send it back. So the
Yeah,
designer will give us that style card to the pattern designers within the brand to
yeah,
develop a 3D or a physical sample.
yeah.
But here in the north, I see that it's more actually that there is a very big and strong collaboration with the suppliers on the development of these things. So in this case, it's not the pattern designers in-house, inside the brand that is necessarily making these styles in 3D or developing the 2D patterns as a base to manufacturing, but it is the supplier. So therefore, for the suppliers, 3D also has a lot of benefit.
Yeah.
Already in that part, it even has more later on in the
Yeah.
process, but already in that part, it means a huge difference on what they
Mhm.
can offer.
Okay, interesting. And then everything gets much more flexible and more dynamic because you can scale and change
Yeah.
colors and do those adaptations and see
Mhm.
them um, right away. And is that something again that you do back and forth with the supplier to verify
Yes.
that it
Yeah.
works to make those changes that you want?
Yeah, exactly. So here is where the process of 3D really begins to have an impact, and it is in the development process of a style. So once a style is accepted into the collection, and you have sent a request, your style card, to the supplier, and they upload the first 3D based on those measurements that you have given them, the design sketch, and if there is any base pattern that they can use to alterate to keep the fitting, then they will upload it into a platform where both the pattern design and buy-in go in and
Mhm.
look at how it looks in the body. Is it very tight somewhere? Do they think that it should be longer, should be shorter? Do they want to change any accessory, any top stitch? All of that happens virtually, digitally
Mhm. Yeah.
through the computer, and then they send the comments back to the supplier, so the supplier can look at it, make the
Mhm.
changes, and send it back again. And once this the team is happy with it, then you will normally proceed to a pre-production sample or an approval sample, just to make sure that all of the manufacturing parts that will happen physically
Mhm.
are correct, like how
Yeah.
the strength of the sims, that there is no problem with that. Yeah.
Got it. And in the traditional way, you would also still want to end up in some kind of sample to
Yeah.
test the strength and so on, but you would not have this ability before that to alter and redo,
You do,
right?
but
You do?
physically. So
Okay, exactly.
yeah,
Okay.
so every time they will send a new physical sample.
Wow.
So then that means a
Yeah.
flight that is shipping
Yes.
the physical sample that
Yeah.
takes X amount of days, depending on where it's coming from. Then comments by email back again,
Oh,
another
got it.
sample. Yeah, so it is as much slower.
Got it. All right, cool. I think it gives me a way better understanding of the general process, but I would be very interested in like understanding more the details about the actual workflow of designing and what aspects. And you were kind enough to share with me a video where I think it's a short one, but we can maybe pause. Yeah.
Yeah.
Would you like to
But
say something?
before you go into that
Yeah.
one, I will
Yes.
actually like to mention as well, because when we are talking about the process of designing with 3D,
Hmm.
there are a lot of aspects that need to take into consideration, like the fabric, the material. This is like the most essential in the
Hmm.
development of a style, of any style, because
Yes.
this is where you will assess whether you can guarantee that what you're looking at is realistic to real life.
Yes.
So before you put that video, just wanted to make that clear, because it is an essential part of how to how to bring into a virtual realm
Yeah.
the properties of a physical
Yeah.
object. Yeah.
But I mean, how would you do that in a traditional way? Would you send the garment, like the fabric, up front and get a feeling for it,
Yeah,
or
either if you have a supplier that is not manufacturing the fabric, or you're getting the fabric from a different fabric mill, then you will send the fabric
Mhm.
to the supplier to manufacture this style that then they will send you for
Mhm.
development. Otherwise, sometimes the suppliers already have this material that they're going to
Okay.
use in stock, so then they will use that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So with 3D, do you have to be limited to the material and the fabrics that exist, or can you in 3D actually invent new combinations of material with polyester 50% and this and that and make it feel like this? How
Right
does it work?
now, you cannot on what it is, the draping aspect. So how is the fabric falling?
Uh-huh.
That part you cannot invent it,
Yeah.
because what it is on the options that you can create your own is within the base that
Okay.
it already exists, so the data that it's already fed up with.
Hmm.
Now, visually, visual effects like different type of glitter or a reflection of a fabric, that you can do and manipulate on your own way in 3D.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, I can play this video. I think it looks amazing. What you seem to be able to do in visual effects. It's coming here soon, I think, where you stitch together
Yeah.
the T-shirt, and then it comes the stitches, and I guess the shininess and the material, the fabric here, is based on a real material, or is this? Hmm.
It is based on a real material. So this is something that we tried new, because we want to kind of help the people to get more used to what it is 3D. It is a big challenge sometimes to get everybody on board, because there is this connotation, oh, it's fake, but it's not. In reality, it can be, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. So
Yeah.
therefore, in this video that you showed, we had an actual a real life shooting of this fabric
Hmm.
being stretched. That is the one that we have scanned to create the
Yeah.
t-shirt about it, and then
Right.
we wanted to
Switched
show.
it over to 3D. And you
Yeah,
had a real fabric and switched it seamlessly over to 3D.
exactly. And then
Yeah.
also put how everything comes together to really kind of educate. Like, we're
Hmm.
not inventing. It has you still have to respect the seams and everything that it is
Hmm.
on a garment
Yes.
to be able to recreate it. Yeah.
All right. So in that case, what does it take to be able to achieve this level of quality? And I think maybe we can go through some of the
Mhm.
steps, because I have a couple of questions
Yeah.
in each. Um, so I'm running a video again for the
Yeah.
listeners that are just viewing or listening in. That there's a nice video if you would like to switch over. But yes, so the first thing here is lightning.
Yes.
Seems to be a thing. What can you say about the importance of lightning?
Lighting, when you are creating after you have done the whole development of a style, then you go into sales.
Hmm.
And to sell from 3D to sell digitally, there is a big part that is matching what it is real. And lighting is one of the most essential things when it comes to color
Yeah.
reflections. So it is, if you are going to showcase styles in a website or in a PowerPoint, it doesn't matter the way that you're showcasing the styles,
Hmm.
and you want to match that, no matter whether it came from a 3D or it came from a physical photo, that
Hmm.
the lighting is exactly the same, because
Hmm.
otherwise you can create a bit of disbelief into the digital approach, because
Yeah.
colors may show up differently between each other. So what we do here, both for our expression content that is more elaborated images like the VFX on models, but
Mm.
also for pack pictures, is to guarantee that we have scanned the same room where actually the physical photo shoots are
Mm.
happening. So then we guarantee that all of the natural environment is the same in the virtual world.
Okay, so you
Yeah.
take that in to the rendering process later on, just
Yes.
so that in case a product was photographed, that it it's not different from later on when it's rendered.
Yeah.
Interesting. I have a story where one of our clients back in the days, they called us up and said, like, on these touch screens,
Mhm.
the color is not correct. It does not match, and we're like, oh no, and I try to obviously change the saturation and the brightness and so on, to really match. And then they were like, okay, it matches this one now, but then a previously photographed uh, item was also off. So we came to realize at some point that just the fact that you can bring the sample, the physical sample or product, into different lightings, settings, scenarios, which just makes the blue look very, very different. How do you compensate, or do you take that into consideration in any way in
Color
3D?
color is the most difficult thing
Mm.
everywhere.
Yeah.
And mainly in digital, because then they believe, okay, but it shows wrong because it's digital.
Yeah.
It happens no matter if it is a 3D or if it is a physical photo.
Yeah.
The situation is the same. Color will
Yeah.
never look the same.
No, exactly, and it actually
Between,
applies.
yeah,
Uh, it applies to the stores as well, right? Or showrooms, depending on if it's close to the window
yes.
or if it's close to the. But they don't really complain because it's not digital for some reason that it
If
changes.
Exactly, and that is because they have it physically there, the
Hmm.
garment. If they are in a
Yeah,
showroom and they have it physically there, then it's like, oh, we ignore the screen because this is the color that we can appreciate in hand.
exactly.
But
Interesting.
the moment that you go digital, no
Mm.
matter where it comes from,
Yeah,
you
the
can never.
bar gets much higher.
It,
Yeah.
it does. So of course we try to do a lot of different things to
Yeah.
guarantee that we are yeah, doing the correct color, even though we know we will never satisfy 100%
No.
anybody.
No.
But what we have done apart from scanning the room to really match to our setup on how where the light is hitting and
Mm.
reflecting into the style, then we also have there is the post production of every image that also happens in the physical.
Hmm.
But what we have managed to do is automate it into the rendered platform when we are talking about packs, where then we are what we are trying to match is always the Pantone color,
Hmm.
because
Cool.
that's the only one that you cannot go wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a certain, it's a very specific, right?
Hmm.
Still, the problem is there that then if you go to a screen that is not calibrated, it will look completely different. But
Hmm.
if you open the Pantone color in that
Yeah.
screen, it will match.
Yeah.
So trying to rely on the only thing that we can agree on that it is the correct color, and then
Exactly.
yeah, and then try to educate a bit, little by little, everyone that comes into a showroom, trying to explain and understand why
Mm.
there is a difference, also why there is a difference in a color in a pack shot image and in a model image, because
Yes.
a campaign image also has a different lighting.
Yeah.
A garment is the same, but the lighting is completely different. So there
Exactly.
is also not going to match.
It's going to be an interesting challenge. I also saw quite recently on LinkedIn that Vila was reducing the samples in the showrooms. So it will mean that uh, one has to find clever solutions so that the customers don't say it didn't look like this when they receive the products that they pre-ordered. But I have an idea where maybe to just educate them and to make them realize that what you see on this image is not necessarily the color that will look like in your store or later on when you wear it. So instead, one could just say like, here's the image under these lighting circumstances, it will look like this, and then the same image under other lighting circumstances will look like that, just for them to get an idea that
Yeah.
it's not like the you know ground truth.
No, exactly. And that is what with campaign images you can do, because normally if you
Hmm.
have both of them, then you already have your story to tell, right? On what
Yeah.
is the difference between one of another.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also, I think as I see it now, of course, we say it plain and it won't mean anything until you get feedback and feedback and feedback. But it
Yes.
is knowing the Pantone colors. If you get, if every showroom has a Pantone book next to them,
Yeah.
and then you're like, yes, this is going to be it,
Yes.
even though you
Exactly.
see it a bit differently in the screen. This is the color.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably something like that.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. So that was lighting. Let's check out the next thing that you have to consider, which is digital double creation. I would
Yes.
assume this is about creating a model that you can then later wear these products, but
Yeah.
please.
It's an avatar that we
Hmm.
recreate in 3D in two cases. So we have two avatars for us in Vila at the moment. So we have our fitting avatar, and that
Hmm.
is an avatar that is based on the dummy that we do fitting in. So it has the specific measurements of what the, yeah. the villa girl should have. So it's very technical, is to guarantee, yeah, comfortability, that nothing, the garment is not doing anything weird, and that it fits the size that is
Mhm.
going to say in the label. And then we have um, yeah, the expression avatar, we have called it until now. So like the model shoot avatar, and model, like in real life, models used in a model shoot are very different to the measurements used in fitting. So they are
Okay.
normally thinner, they are taller, they are,
Mm.
they have, yeah, they are much more stylized than the
Yes.
actual needs of a mannequin.
Mm.
So we
Got it.
have this one as well. So we recreated both, so then we can communicate it as well. So we can use it for communication, looking pretty,
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
if
Exactly.
someone will, yeah, as if it went to a campaign photo shoot.
How reliable is are those these these avatars? Like, if it fits well here, does it really fit well once it's produced as well on a similar body measurements?
On the fitting avatar, yes, that is the whole purpose of it, to make
Hmm.
sure that it fits what it needs to be on the production. So that's why
Hmm.
we have a double of what we fit here in house in these dummies. So
Hmm.
we make sure that whatever is virtual, when it comes to arrive here physically, it should fit exactly the same, because it is the same posture, the same measurements, everything is exactly the same.
Hmm.
Now there can be, and it is one of the biggest struggles to get more people on board into trusting the process of developing
Hmm.
with 3D, because sometimes the drape of the fabric, as I was mentioning before, is not necessarily 100%. So there
Hmm.
might be some parts of a garment that you will say, I'm not really sure it looks like that. But you need to
Hmm.
train your eye to understand that what is going to come next, and that you only get with trying and time. And also,
Hmm.
of course, if you have your own base of development, the 2D part, then you kind of trust it even more, because then you guarantee, okay, but it is made on the fitting needs that I have. Yeah.
Got it. Okay, so there can be a challenge where some people will see that it works well here, but then slightly different because of
Yeah.
changes with the draping, and then they would distrust the technology.
Yeah.
But the strange part again here is that the bar is set much higher, because the other option is to not being able to measure it or fit it before production at all, right?
No, 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 they can, but it's physically.
Yeah,
They
exactly,
always had,
physically.
yeah.
Yeah, of
Yeah.
course.
But it's delayed. You can, with the using of 3D, you can really increase your lead time, for instance. So,
Okay.
what is waiting more? The struggle of understanding it at the beginning, or the potential
Yes.
that it has. So after you have used it several times, then you understand it. You are trained into. You can appreciate it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Got it. Two more questions on this one
Mhm.
before moving on. So, do you make these fitting avatars for each size of a model, like small to extra large, or different fits, or and also do you make these avatars in house, or is it something that the suppliers provide?
Yeah. So we in-house, us, we don't work that much with size sets in 3D. We have our base size that is a 38. So we normally just have that one. It is
Mhm.
though possible to have it in all of the different sizes. That
Okay.
is, and many people use that. Not, we don't necessarily use that. We have our gradings later for the styles that should fit the different bodies.
Okay.
And then on the fitting avatar, we use an external vendor. It's Alvanon. Alvanon is a very known company for mannequins, fitting mannequins, and they have created the Alva forms, which are the equivalent of those
Mhm.
physical mannequins for 3D.
Mhm.
And then the expression avatar, until recently, we did them in house. Now, because we don't have the person in the team that had the skills to do that, is something very specific to create avatars. You really need to have someone that understands it. It's a completely
Yes.
different software.
Yeah.
Then we outsource it, yeah, to a freelancer, or there are different companies that can offer this.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Mm.
Cool. So, uh, fabric scanning.
Yes.
What uh, what's the process here? So again, you have to have the fabric and you scan it so that you can, I assume, use it in 3D. So what's the challenges around this thing?
Yeah, so you have two parts of the fabric scanning. One, as mentioned before, is the draping part, the properties, the physical properties of the fabric. And the other
Hmm.
one is the visual part. What we are seeing right now is the visual scanning. So there is, you will cut a piece of fabric, of the physical fabric that you have, and then there are different solutions out there, but there is specific scanners that made your life easier when you're trying to scan in 3D. And what it's doing is taking like different layers of the fabric. So you will have your texture. In general, that will be your color, your color map, color image of the fabric. Then you will have a normal map, it's called, and this is kind of showing the waving of the fabric, like the structure behind it.
Hmm.
Then you will have a displacement map or bump map, and that
Hmm.
is the height of the fabric. So like the threads, or if you have like in a
Hmm.
lace fabric, then you will have parts of it that are a bit higher. Like, yeah, it has
Hmm.
I don't know the name in English. It's coming in Spanish, but yeah, like a little bump. It comes up.
Yes.
Yeah.
Got it.
And then you have the roughness map, and that is how shiny the fabric is.
Yes.
And also the opacity map, so how transparent it is. And
Okay.
opacity is one of it's a difficult map image to get, because it
Yeah.
depends a lot on what is the color of the base of the textile that you are scanning. Because
Hmm.
if it is too white, then it will appear very transparent, even though it's
Hmm.
not. But every texture has some sort of transparency into it. And
Right.
if it is black, then it will appear basically opaque, and it's also not realistic. There should be some translucency. If you are getting the piece of fabric and put it
Hmm.
behind a window or in the air, you will see some light coming through, and that is what you want to get as well with the opacity map.
Yeah.
So due to this, and also to the high detail that you can get for the different maps, we normally ask to scan in a medium tone, like a gray or a medium green, not too dark, not too light. So then we can
Okay.
get all of the different details and the correct transparency
Okay.
of the fabric.
And the scanner here, I guess, is a special
Yeah.
type of scanner. Does once you scan it, do you get all of these maps, or do you still have to do some manual tweaking afterwards?
You do some tricking in the software where you scan it. You tile it, so the repetition when you are then doing more meters of fabric is
Hmm.
even all across, so you don't find like little frames to the square that you have scanned. And
Right.
then you can play around with the different presets to adjust the different presets of the opacity, reflection,
Hmm.
etc., to really see how how it reacts. We really
Do,
want
do,
to
do
match
you do you do this in house, or is it something done by the suppliers and shared the resource or the
we
assets shared with
have
you?
We have a central team in Bestseller that has different 3D teams across the different sourcing countries.
Hmm.
So, in these sourcing countries where our suppliers are,
Hmm.
there is a team specialized on fabric scanning. So
Hmm.
we will request the supplier to send the fabric cut to the team in our sourcing offices, and then they will do the whole process of scanning. We can also do it at home, some in house. Sometimes if we are in a rush and we need the recreation of it, but then we just use an office scanner and
Yeah.
Photoshop.
Oh, really?
Yes.
That's amazing. Is there? Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
But um, so is there any big difference in quality in terms of these? Actually, my question would be, um, because you're sourcing from multiple suppliers,
Mhm.
so I guess that's also why you would need a central organization to really scan all these patterns. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to actually use them to change around the 3D
Yeah.
garment. Yeah.
And then we couldn't rely on an even quality, right? by
Hmm.
centralizing it in this way, we make sure that all of the fabrics are scanned in the same software, following the same best practices on how to
Hmm.
do it. So it is a uniform
Yeah.
library that we can get from this. Yeah. Of course, these fabrics are only being used by the suppliers that own this quality, but
Yes.
it helps also them to have all of this scanned as a library, so then they can easily use it anytime they need,
Okay.
and then we can use it if we have any chance have to make a
Okay.
style in 3D in house.
Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, it really feels like already three things into the 3D concept, like lighting and the fabric and the avatar. A lot of stuff needs to be set up and be working. I guess I would assume that being a small brand might be challenging to get all of these things to work properly. I would like to hear more about
Yeah.
your like challenges to scale this thing, but maybe we can just go through this and we'll come back to that
Yeah.
question.
Mm.
But it's interesting. Okay, so let's see. Next up after scanning the fabric, uh, 3D garment draping. Yeah, we talked about this, but I think I did not ask the question because I knew this was coming. Draping is probably something that not everyone knows by default what that actually means. You get a sense when you see it here in the video, but for those that don't see the video, maybe you can try to explain what
Yeah.
draping actually is.
So draping is constructing the style in the 3D environment, where you have the properties on how a fabric falls, like considering also gravity,
Mhm.
everything into
Yes.
it, and how elastic, how yeah, it's the bendiness, is resistance of the fabric, and then you simulate it. You make it, yeah, it's difficult to explain when you're so
Mhm.
used to
Yeah.
communicating in this language. Yeah, to just basically, it's, let's say, draping, yeah, is like when you are putting on
Yeah.
a piece of clothing,
Yeah.
and then you see how it fits, how it falls in your body. So
Hmm.
yeah.
How exactly how it hugs you. So, and this draping in this software, for example, I can see here that it seems to be based on the actual pieces in the CAD
Yes.
version, so to say. So, changing, I guess, some of the aspects of the original CAD drawing will also then instantly change the draping effect and how it fits and
Yeah.
so on. Is that correct?
Correct. And
I
that
mean,
is
that was.
the one super important thing when it comes to 3D in the fashion industry,
Hmm.
is the how to be rely on it is the 2D part. That is the base. Is
Yeah.
without that, then you cannot construct it. It's like building a house. If you don't have the blueprint of the house, then good luck
Yes.
making it not fall apart.
Exactly. Exactly. But the draping aspect, like hardcore experienced fashion designers that only do the 2D CAD drawing type of stuff,
Mhm.
can they imagine how the draping will be eventually after some years, or do they still need the physical sample to be produced?
And this is where is the biggest gap between a fashion designer and a pattern designer.
Mhm.
The pattern designer, because they work with the 2D CAD open in how it is will be a spread to cut.
Hmm.
They know how it will look
Yes.
put on in a manufacture, right? Stitched up
Hmm.
together. Now the fashion designer, some of them they can imagine it, but many of them know, or they lose that knowledge because it's not something that they work with, these
Hmm.
open pieces, plain open pieces of the design
Hmm.
in their day to day. So
Yes.
they cannot assess like how the sleeve having a specific shape will look into
Mm.
the real
Yeah,
output
yeah.
of it.
Then I can imagine this is really a superpower when it comes to that.
Yeah, and that's why I mentioned before, like the importance of libraries. If you
Yes.
have a base of the CAD of the 2D part, as a library, then the designers can use it, can use 3D very easily. But you need to
Hmm.
have that base. Otherwise, of course, designers can draw here and there, but it might not make any sense what they are
Hmm.
creating
Yeah,
realistically for manufacturing.
got it.
Yeah.
Maybe a side note, but how much effort does it take from a traditional designer to get used to working in these 3D tools? Do they have to learn the tool itself, or do they just rely on components and assets being provided to them, and then they would know how to drag and drop?
Yeah. So it depends. It depends on the designer. I will say that normally, as it is nowadays, it is better just for them to not get to know the full program, all of the 2D part, but just how to drag and drop, add things here and there, visually wise, playing with prints, than
Hmm.
to build it from scratch. You do of course have designers that you need them to be able to do both in order to build these libraries.
Create,
Otherwise
yes.
then yeah, but it wasn't until recently actually that in university or in different courses, like there was an education for 3D in fashion, so that is also something very new. So of course you still have a lot of people that they don't know anything about 3D in the fashion industry at all, so
Mm-hmm.
it is more difficult to get those ones on board or understanding and teaching something completely new when
Hmm.
their way of working already works and
Yes, yes.
has been working for many years. So then why would I need to change?
Yeah.
That
No,
is
exactly. And I
so.
guess the benefits of being able to visualize this, the time savings and so on, is not enough to make them take those hard steps into learning something new.
No, it can be enough, but it's not enough at the beginning, because at the
Yeah.
beginning you don't see how much faster it is because you're not
Hmm.
used to it. So then everything will take you more time. The
That's
moment
true.
that you are over that, then yes. But
Hmm.
yeah, that's why I believe it is more about making it easier for them of click here, mix and match,
Hmm.
because then there is no excuse. Let's say then it's
Yes.
easier from the beginning.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So you give them the happy meals of the
Yeah.
software, the easy
Yes.
stuff, and then once they start eating, consuming that, you offer the Big Macs.
Exactly.
That's cool. So let's see what else are there to consider. Some nice animations going on here in the video. Uh, oh yeah, this is really cool. So we have one photographed and one 3D rendered.
Yeah.
How often, or what's your experience like? Like, can people tell the difference if the text is not there?
Nope, they can't. If the text is not there and you don't have anything on the name of the style that says it is somehow 3D digital,
Hmm.
they can't. We always actually make like a test every time we present. We do an intro into 3D to colleagues in house. We are trying to avoid to do that to the salespeople. They shouldn't know.
Hmm.
It's just
Hmm.
digital. Doesn't matter.
Exactly.
But in house, when we try, we actually put this test where we put several pictures
Hmm.
of mix of 3D packs and physical packs. And many times they say that the 3D pack is actually a physical one. And then it's
That's
such a pleasure
interesting.
to then click the next button and it appears.
What's the reactions at that point in time?
They just go, "Oh wow, I couldn't. Oh, but it looks better. The 3D." I'm like, "Yes,
Yes.
it does."
Yeah. It's so interesting.
Yeah, it is. Of
Uh,
course, you do have people that are very trained into it, so they can identify it because there
mhm,
is little places that you can spot them.
mhm.
I don't know if I should share them because otherwise people might hear it and then they will be, this is the 3D.
Well, now I'm very curious. We can share it and I can cut it out. I'm just kidding. But
So,
no, if you can share it, that would be very
yes, of
interesting.
course. So I could. So if you look at this too, for instance,
Hmm.
then you can see that the hem is much more even in the 3D than in the photographed
Sorry, what
version.
what is more even?
The hem, sorry, the bottom of the dress. That was a
Okay.
technical word.
Mhm.
The bottom
Yes.
of the dress. Then you
Okay.
can feel for the shadow on the neckline that
Hmm.
there is the bust, the chest area
Yeah.
is a bit more out than in the photograph. And then in the
Okay.
label, but
The
you really need to
label.
zoom in. Yeah,
Okay.
because when you photograph physical samples in the label, there is it's always a bit uneven. Not every label is going to be looking exactly the same
Hmm.
for every different style. Whereas in 3D, it normally does. It's not a
That's
thing you
interesting.
can, yeah.
Untrained eye, I would never have spotted it. But now I know. I will point it out to just be, a smart guy in the room. Like, oh, this is the 3D.
Yeah.
All right, cool. And I think that was more or less. Oh yeah, this one is cool.
Yeah.
So model
Uh,
poising,
no, compositing,
position, compos,
positioning. Yeah. You're,
positioning.
yeah.
What does it say? All right,
Pose.
posing.
Yeah. It's the
Um,
pose.
exactly. So you have a real model in the back, and then
Yeah.
a 3D model in the front. What's going on?
Yes. So basically, when we started with the selling process from 3D, so we here in Vila, where this is all coming from this
Hmm.
video, at the beginning we focus a lot on the development process, right? So how can we reduce the fitting samples, as we talked at the beginning, the back
Hmm.
and forth before production, and then the natural next step was okay, how can we sell from it, right? And then
Hmm.
we started with the pack pictures, as we just seen, and then this is not necessarily enough because when you don't have a physical sample in place, there are many things that you are losing. The touch,
Hmm.
of course, of the fabric, but also a perspective on actually how long it is, how big it is, how does it look in a body. Because physically you can have an idea, or even people try it on just to know how it could look like. So we decided, okay, what can we do next? We tried with the avatars, so just the 3D on top of an avatar. But avatars, even though we had a very realistic looking one, so with hair and makeup and freckles and everything as much realistic as possible,
Hmm.
still it looks quite fake. And that was the feedback that we got always from sales. Ooh, it looks a bit weird, this person, this humanoid we're looking into. And so
But it's
it's
strange, actually, right? Because the purpose or the need was to see how tall it is compared to the body and so on.
yeah,
How the body looks should not really matter too much. One things, but I've also heard similar feedback.
it becomes distracting.
Hmm.
That's the thing. The moment that you put a face on it, it becomes distracting. And then
Got it.
if you don't put a face on it, then it looks fake. So
Yes. Lose
what
lose.
yes, so what to do? And then very likely we had someone that she was very much into knowledgeable into how the movie industry works with visual effects. That is what VFX stands for.
Hmm.
And so she brought up like, why don't we mix the 3D with a real model and can just like photoshop it together, right?
Hmm.
um, so we went, okay, yes, let's do that, because then you have the real human that doesn't look fake, and
Hmm.
then a 3D style that it is fake, but because it is on a human, it doesn't look
It
fake.
does look fake.
And it's not
That's
fake,
smart.
sorry, it's not the correct word. It's just not physical. It is not
Okay.
fake. Yeah.
Great.
So that's why then this is what is happening. So we do a photo shoot every year, actually, of a model in her underwear,
Mm.
where we put different shoes and also jeans. Jeans are very difficult to do in 3D, so we just use them the real ones,
Hmm.
and we make a library of different poses and different styling shoes, etc. And then we recreate the with the avatar that we have made based on that model's measurements. We
Hmm.
recreate the different poses that we have taken the photo shoot of. Then with this pose, we can drape the again the wardrobe, we can simulate the 3D garment into that exact movement, so we get the same folds, the same how it would look in a real model if they were to put their hands in the waist or something
Hmm.
of the sort. And then because we have scanned the room of the lighting,
Hmm.
then we can, and the room that we have scanned is the same room of the photo shoot that we use on the same day to photo shoot that
Hmm.
model. So when we put that into 3D to render the 3D style in the pose, then it has the same light as the as
Room
the as the model where she
models.
was
Hmm.
photographed. So then it matches. So then you can just put it together in Photoshop, and
In
then
Photoshop. Aha. So this thing now, what we see, is
yeah,
done eventually in Photoshop.
yeah. So if you go one step backwards, where you see that there is we are erasing the this avatar from
Yes,
the screen
I think somewhere
image.
here. Let's see.
There in the
There we have.
compositing. So this is where the picture on the background is the one from the model, and then this is the
Hmm.
picture on the top is the one is the render file, and then you just erase it with the rubber.
Hmm.
Yes, it is photoshopped at the end, but it is with the interesting thing here is that
Yeah,
because you have the lighting scanned and you have
yeah,
all of the camera information, of course, as well, of like where
yeah.
what is the where was the camera located in the room and all of that, so you are rendering the style exactly as if it was in that room the moment of the photo shoot, then it looks natural.
Yeah, I mean, you're going from becoming being a fashion brand to a Hollywood production company. I mean, it really looks amazing. The end result here, I think, a few people would be able to tell that it's uh, not fake. What was it called? Physical,
it, it is digital and physical, but it's not
digital,
fake.
physical. It's yeah, it's very very cool. Um,
It's
w- w-
digital.
digital. It feels like this is a process that requires a lot of expertise. The whole thing
Yes.
that you now explained, and also a lot of money. Um, or is it just that
Yeah,
it sounds complex, but it's
it's I mean it can be many things. It can be very complex. It is complex, but it can be very a skill required and difficult to scale, and it can be very expensive as well.
Mhm.
But likely we here in house we have a 3D generalist, and he is has so much knowledge into
Mm.
photography as well, apart from really recreating anything in 3D.
Yeah.
It is a very good uh, resource to have, and
Hmm.
also then there is new technology is advancing so much in this case, so
Yes.
then there are new tools that make it easier and easier. So this year when we did it again, the first one was very manual, so we had to take pictures of all of the frames of the room, really right measure where the camera was put on, all very manual.
Hmm.
Now you have great 3D scanners in your phone, in your iPhone, that
Oh
you can
yeah.
use to scan the room, and it is real to life. So you can measure from there, and then you can already have this setup.
Hmm.
In this, you actually can save it as a 3D object from the
Yeah.
scanning, and then you just need to clean it up and, of course, tweak some things
Yes.
here and there. But it is much more automated. So in
Yeah.
that sense, it is getting easier with time. And then, of course, we do collaborate with a vendor. We
Mm.
outsource the whole processing of the poses and all of this. Because if we are to do for every style that we do in 3D,
Mm.
to make the pose, render it out, Photoshop it in, then we could never scale it really. Then you need a
Okay.
team of
Yeah.
I don't know how many people even depends on how big you want to scale it up. So definitely collaborating with the partners that can assist on
Hmm.
this is essential. Yeah.
Yeah, got it. Interesting. Because I'm thinking if there is a big requirement, a big need, and an obvious win and benefit of transforming your processes into working more with 3D this way, even though it costs, it will somehow be, just adopted, and it will be done basically. Is in this case the main challenge that the technical scalability and maybe the cost aspect that is the hindering part of coming to
Mhm.
full scale, or is it maybe that there is no real big need and people have been able to work and solve the problems in the past with existing tools? Which one is in the way? Maybe both or something else?
It is something in between, I will say, because as it is right now, there hasn't been a need. Because if you go physical, then you don't necessarily need this, right? But the
Hmm.
moment that the industry is shaping to much more digital approach, and you want to cut down on sales samples and have digital showrooms and not this very old school setups where everything needs to be sampled on the point that it is not environmentally friendly. So that has to change no matter what. So
Yeah.
then suddenly it becomes a need,
Yes.
because it becomes a need because it's an extra point of information that is as it is now needed for
Hmm.
the purchases, the customers to understand it better, to buy
Yeah.
into what you are showcasing. So then suddenly it becomes a need, but it is so new that
Hmm.
also you don't know how much return of investment are you getting from it, and
Got it.
therefore the cost is a
Mhm.
it's an issue of scalability, because until you have like a really big scope on what it means and where you can save, what you can gain from it, then
Yes.
it's, yeah,
Got
it
it.
becomes difficult. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, because I know from experience, we worked with the digital showroom,
Mhm.
applying this type of content in that application, and it's not like any lack from the management team. I think they are very keen on pushing 3D into every application in every platform. Um, it sometimes feels like, and they don't even care if the salespeople want it or not. They just, this is how we have to do it, and then we start trying to implement it. And as you said, like the transparent layers when exporting from the original 3D file to this presentable file. So someone wondering, like, assuming that everyone would like to have it, do you think that technically we would be in a position to deliver it in regards to managing the assets, exporting, storing, all that logistics also around it?
That, as it is right now, no. I mean, it depends on the situation of different companies, right? But it is, before that can scale up, then there needs to be a good management system of the different
Mm.
assets, also the different skills. The libraries for me is extremely important, and it is
Mm.
what we are focusing now a lot is really to build the libraries all across, both libraries that is the foundation on how to get it started and to create both the production process, the product process, and also the creative process,
Mhm.
because you need different things for for the different areas. So to build that up, so then you can guarantee that everything that comes up in the output as an output
Yes.
can be easily streamlined
Mhm.
in a flow, because otherwise it becomes too manual, it becomes very much back and forth, it becomes a massive amount of storage of cache situations, everything
Yes.
crashing down. So really
Getting
to have
support calls in the middle of the night.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
to have
Uh,
everything
yeah.
yeah,
What's
really gathered
what's
down and automated. It is a very
Mhm.
important part to really make it easier, because even though the possibilities of simplifying many things and make them faster is there, the building up of it is very manual still. So
Mhm.
how to automate those processes across the different workflows that teams have in a company? Yeah.
Mhm. What's your gut feeling in terms of time frame here? When are we there? And maybe as maybe a wrap up topic, how could AI, do you imagine, help us get there?
AI is going to be a game changer. It is a game changer already in 3D.
Hmm.
Uh, in the building these libraries, it is already how you can get easily these assets out, how people can work with the 3D in their day to day without having to have all of this specific knowledge and very specialized knowledge. So that is definitely changing the
Hmm.
game. Also,
Already now, or do you
yeah,
suspect that it will change?
already now,
Oh.
there are many different companies that are trying new things with
Hmm.
AI. Of course, I cannot say exactly how it is going to look
Hmm.
precisely, but it is really challenging what we have done in the past,
Hmm.
the focus that has been in the past, and what does a team need to be established? How many people do we need? What skills do we need?
Hmm.
It is really changing. And when you have been in 3D specifically, I think it was one of the things that we were going to discuss today, that it hasn't kicked off 100% in all fashion brands, the
No.
implementation of 3D, because it is that manual
Hmm.
aspect and of learning the program, of understanding how to use it. Now with AI, you can improve it.
Hmm.
So already in all of the different companies, people are using AI without 3D,
Hmm.
and that is already a game changer. Now put it with 3D, then
Yeah.
you're accelerating many different areas and facilitating, making it more digestible
Mhm.
to the people that are not used to new technology
Yeah.
into it.
Do you have a feeling that it will become um, accessible and cost effective to the extent within so that even brands that are not bestseller level will be able to adopt it?
Yes.
And do you have any feeling of time frame? Like if you would have to guess?
It's a very difficult question.
Now you're sweating.
Yeah, and now I'm sweating. Exactly.
It's on. It's
um,
going to be captured.
it really it really depends on what stage a brand is at the moment, and how proactive and willing you are to implement AI. It also depends on the legal aspect of AI. Let's not
Yes.
forget about that as well.
Yes,
It
of
is
course.
completely new, so there will be some back and forth, I will assume, in
Yeah.
different stages. But I'm just gonna say a number just to say it.
Yeah.
But
Yes.
I will just say 2030. It will
Y-
be
2030. So in
yes,
6 years.
yes. I'm putting some time because there is a lot of things that will be tried out. Then things
Mhm.
need to be improved and tailored. Then you can start
Mhm.
fully implementing to the full potential of it.
Mhm.
And when we are talking about fashion, it depends, of course, again, what type of company you have. But for
Mhm.
instance, if you are a B2B based company, or that is your main road of operations, then if your sales team is not with you,
Mhm.
then you are being delayed, because they are the ones that at the
Yeah.
end, even though internally everyone is motivated about it,
Mhm.
then you still care about, at the end of the day, how much sales are you making, what is your turnover. So if
Good.
this is not supported from that
Yes.
side, then it's going to delay the rest. So I'm saying that because now we are doing a great job with the digital showroom implementation, really shifting from the physical setup to the digital
Mhm.
setup. But it is a process, and there is change management takes time, and you cannot put a timer on it,
Yes.
unfortunately.
No, no,
So
but I mean, it feels
yeah,
realistic. 6 years to both do some change management, get salespeople on board. They're not always the easiest people to get on board, but I guess once they're on board, there should be, at least hopefully by then, no technical limitations.
exactly. So yeah, 6 years to be safe, but ambitious wise, of course, I would like to be in 2 years. But you know,
Yes.
being a little bit
Well,
realistic. The
exactly. Well,
ambition will be
fingers crossed. Well, I guess I can re-invite you in 2 years' time and then in 6 years' time, and we
there.
can see if you were right or not.
Yeah.
But Claudia, this was a very insightful, very educational, very fun session. So I thank you so much for joining and sharing all of your learnings and insights.
Thank you very much for having me. It was super nice. You come with a very specific and difficult questions, but are very important. It is very nice to have a talk about it.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like it's important to share because, as I'm usually in the middle of the digital and physical space, trying to make sense of things, and I hear a little bit here and there, but many times, it one wish that the departments would have a little bit more understanding and insight into each other's work and the processes, what's possible, what's not possible, and so on. I think that could help innovate, help speed up a little bit of stuff. So I think that's also one of the reasons I want to learn and maybe also at the same time share these learnings with others.
And of course, just so not everyone is afraid. When we're talking digital and physical, it's not about replacing one or another. It's about using the strength of each. So that
Exactly.
is the goal. It's not that
Yes,
suddenly physical won't exist. That will never happen. But it's about having the strength of both into one.
fully
Yeah.
agree. Let's end with those wise words. Thank you so much, Claudia.
Thank you so much.